Hello, everybody. This is Finfinde News Network. Now, today's program will be discussing about the assassination of Batte Urgessa, and we will ask questions as to why was Batte assassinated, why is Batte assassinated at this time, and who is likely behind his assassination. I have a guest today. My guest is the Noble Wario from Wales, United Kingdom. So stay with us until the end of our program. Welcome, the Noble.
Thank you for having me, Daniel.
All right. So the Noble, let's first take a look at the public knowledge about Batte Urgesa's contribution to the Oromo politics and the politics in Ethiopia and his experience in the last couple of years. And why is Batte Urgessa assassinated at this time? And what are indications that he would at some point probably he's at risk of assassination and this kind of tragedy in the past? What tells us about the likely, um, the misfortune this has that has transpired in the last couple of days?
Thank you, Daniel. I think it's better to give a little bit background about who Batte Urgessa is. Batte Urgessa is one of the senior officials of the Oromo Liberation Front, OLF, based in Finfinne, the capital. Even though he is relatively young, he is very mature, wise politician that has influenced the the politics of not just Empire Ethiopia but also the Horn of Africa. Batte Urgessa is father. He's a father of 4 children. He's 41 years old, and he has been playing key roles in facilitating conversations, in peaceful way between Ethiopia and the Oromo Liberation Front. But he had also, on the other hand, he spent most of his years, particularly since Abiy Ahmed came to power, going into and out of prison. There was a time where he was in one of his prolonged prison. There was a time when he suffered illnesses as a result of mistreatment, and he barely managed to survive. Then he was released and arrested again, detained again, released. Through all this time, there was no single time when he was convicted of any crime. The only crime apparently is his identity, his being Oromo. And most recently, I think was less than a month ago, he was detained and arrested in federal torture facility because he happened to be with a French journalist. He's the journalist correspondent for Agence France Presse. So the journalist was also arrested with him, but fortunately for the journalist, because he's got a country, he's got a government who could stand for the citizens, the journalist released, and Batte Urgessa was kept incommunicado for quite good weeks before he was recently released. So what happened after he was released is the tragedy that happened. It's a man-made tragedy that happened to him yesterday. What happened yesterday, according to the credible international sources, including I've just happened to read the news from Agence France Presse, who reported he was detained, he was arrested, and they dragged him from his bedroom. Well, according to the press from Agence France Presse, he was arrested by security forces, by the government authorities, and few hours later, he was found killed. And different sources suggest he was brutally cold-blooded way. I mean, he was murdered in brutal, very barbaric. I don't know if you've come across his image where his arms were, tied behind, and he was shot several times. The BBC Afan reported they discovered him shot with more than 10 wounds. There was no post-mortem examination conducted. The police forces prohibited his families for significant hours of time not to take his body. They weren't even allowed to take his body. But later, eventually they were allowed to, the grieving family allowed to take his body and bury him. Adding insult to injuries to the family. A few hours ago, I received news that two of his brothers who were grieving family members were also arrested and taken away by the Ethiopian government authorities. So the assassination has been reported by many international media outlets, and also human rights organizations are condoning it and saying independent investigation need to be made into the assassination. The Ethiopian Human Rights Commission also made the same statement, which for me is water downing. He was detained by the government security forces, and few hours later, he was found dead and shot several places. And I don't really get why an institution such as the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission, under the leadership of Daniel Bakala, anyway, it's a government-run institution, they made that kind of a statement, which tries to obfuscate the assassination, which tries to make it look like, oh no, wasn't the government security forces who killed him. I mean, he was under arrest. He was taken away by the government security forces. Who else would have done it? Would have killed him when he was under arrest by the government security forces. Now, it is not unusual for them to make that kind of excuse whenever they conduct assassinations. It is a public knowledge that they try to obfuscate it by making statements. I'm talking about the Oromia Regional government, who made a statement saying, "Oh, we don't know who assassinated him, who killed him, and an investigation is being made into the matter, and we don't have to make comments." But this is absolute nonsense. It's an absolute nonsense, not just because he was detained, arrested, taken away by the government security forces, and a few hours later he was found dead, but also the Ethiopian, I mean, the Oromia regional government made similar um, similar statement before. When um, just a few years ago, when the Ethiopian government security forces conducted massacre against the Oromo Karayu institutional leaders and Gada officers, they rushed to make statements saying, "Oh, they were killed, they were massacred by the Oromo Liberation Front," in a very, very ruthless way. But later on, they changed their narratives, and the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission said they were assassinated, they were massacred by the Ethiopian government security forces, and no one has been kept. Has been brought to justice, or no one has been held accountable. It's only recently that the Reuters, I think we've discussed about it on this same platform recently. Quite a few weeks ago, the Reuters revealed a damning report about the massacre of the Oromo Karayu leaders, that the massacre was conducted by a group, a clandestine group, organized by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and President Shimelis, which they call the Korean again. Basically it's a killing squad, and the Reuters report went on to give details of who gave order and how the massacre was conducted. So Batte is not different. He was aware. He knew that his life was at risk, particularly after his last arrest, and he knew that his situation was only reflective of the climate of fear that Ethiopia has inflicted on the Oromo, that each and every individual Oromo are operating under. So why did they assassinate Batte Urgessa? All I could say is that they were threatened. The government of Abiy Ahmed and the government of Shimelis Abdisa were threatened by his wisdom, by his grace, charismatic personality, by his credibility. So this threatened them. Apparently, there's an upcoming election. They thought he would take part in that election, and I believe they thought they wanted to get rid of him. That is specifically speaking about Batte. But as you asked me about the larger, what implication does it have for me? It is part of implementation, the continued implementation of Abiy Ahmed's policy of drying up the sea in order to get rid of the fish, which they declared word by word. Abiy Ahmed himself declared that the government of Ethiopia must eliminate OLF. They do not specify their declaration to the Oromo Liberation Army, which Batte Urgessa has nothing to do with. Uh, so this is part of the implementation of wiping out the Oromo in order to force the Oromo Liberation Army to surrender.
Thank you, the Noble Warrior. Of course, for our viewers, this is part of the ongoing crackdown on the Oromo people, the ongoing crime being perpetrated against the Oromo people. As the Noble raised just recently, Reuters reported a very in great detail about the targeted assassination of political opponents and members of the Oromo community by the Oromia Regional Administration and higher officials from the Oromia Regional Administration and from the federal government. And as we speak, on daily basis, people are being eliminated, people are being killed, and those people are being killed by members of the Ethiopian government security forces. And this is a tip of the iceberg. And it's not the only assassination, it's not the only incident that has happened in the last months, in the last weeks. It is happening on daily basis. And the only reason this has got enough attention is, if it has at all, and it is because Batte Urgessa is a very known face. He's a high-profile political assassination, and that's the only reason why this has got this much attention so far. And so many people are being assassinated. So many people are being murdered, cold-blooded by the Ethiopian security forces. And for me, I don't want to look away and search for any other perpetrator when we know that Batte has been subject to ill treatment over the last year, in 2023. He was detained several times. He was detained in one of the inhuman and under inhuman conditions. At some point, he mentioned he was detained with poultry and animals. He was injured while he was in detention. He was tortured. He sustained head injury, and his wounds were repaired using unsanitary medical devices, and he was infected with hepatitis virus while he was in jail. He sustained severe infection, and he sustained disability, some kind of injuries. And when he came out, he was using crutch, and eventually was sent to hospital, and he got treated, and that was how rather than let him die in prison, they let him out anyways. And then he kept on being harassed and being detained. As you mentioned, he was recently arrested and detained for more than a week, and he was released. And what kind of runs in my head right now is, why at this point, why at this time and point that they have decided to kill? I don't question who has killed. Of course, and the Ethiopian security forces. Yesterday, I was listening to a program run by a Pakistani journalist and a previous forensics. Um, um, and he was mentioning a lot of points toward this has happened by an unorganized group who are trying to prevent what BATE stands for, achieving a political objective for the Oromo people. It is not. This has not happened by criminal groups who were trying to rob him or burglary or some kind of He was taken away from a hotel room, and he was taken away for about 2 kilometers. That's why brother Millo mentioned today to OMN. He was taken away, and he was shot using 6 bullets. They collected about 6 shells of bullets, and that indicates that the purpose of his killing was not to rob him or just to kill him. There was an intent, and the intent was to make sure he was dead. And then he was trying to a dump site and try to even make his days, um, you know, lose an honor and the respect that he deserves from the Oromo people whom he is representing. So a lot of evidence points towards the government for this, because the government has detained him, tortured him while he was in prison, and recently arrested him again and released him. And so he's already under their watch, and it doesn't make sense that Batte Urgessa is assassinated in his hometown by any other group than the government. And all evidence, including the Korean that Reuters has recently published, points toward the Ethiopian government. They, at this point, they have restrained themselves to some extent, pointing their finger towards the Oromo Liberation Army, as they have done when they conducted the mass killing of Bagada Karayus, the Gada leaders, um, at the end of 2022, December 2021. Yeah, December 2021. This time they have restrained themselves. They I haven't seen them pointing fingers towards any other person, but they said it has to be investigated. Um, so, but the question I have is why at this point? And you mentioned probably they are trying to eliminate him as a threat to their government, especially they want to prevent him from participating in an election. I don't know when that election is going to take place. Um, what does this? What is the political implication of this now? Or can we believe at any point nonviolent struggle is acceptable and allowed in Ethiopia? What does the assassination of Batte Urgessa by government security forces indicate and suggest?
Yeah, look, why now is a little bit tricky question, because there was no time, there was no week, or there was no single month or year when the Oromo civilians were not killed. Every day, in every corner of Oromia, civilians are subjected to massacre. Like you mentioned, but he's gone. You know, he's an icon. He is almost an international figure. Um, because of this, his assassination might have triggered the attention of many. But there are thousands and thousands of people who are cold murdered, and whose killing is not even reported. And for the Oromo, for us, we have become too familiar with these kinds of killings. It has become our daily reality. That we're becoming even numb. Look, it's not the first time for Ethiopia to assassinate key political figure, influential Oromo people. They assassinated Hachalu Hundessa, the same Ethiopia that assassinated Hachalu Hundessa, assassinated Batte Urgessa. It's the same Ethiopia that assassinated Ebisa Adunya. You know, the Ethiopian soldiers went to Ebisa Adunya. They broke into his bedroom. They killed him and they dragged his body on the rough ground. The list can go on and on. Marame Harka, Yosef Gammachu, that Higalan. I'm only mentioning those key icons who were killed in broad daylight by Ethiopian soldiers. Has anyone been brought to justice? No. Do we even know those soldiers who killed Ebisa Dunya, for example? At that time, Abiy Ahmed was the foot soldier of the Ethiopian military. Lemma Magarsa was. Perhaps Abadullah was a military commander. These are people, okay? We don't have any evidence it was not Abiy Ahmed or Lemma Magarsa who shot Ebisa Dunya. All the Oromo artists, including the recent one, Hajar. What makes it now different is that the government of Ethiopia has made it loud and clear. They declared, we will eliminate OLF. That's Abiy Ahmed's word. He said, we will eliminate OLF. And after he said that, how would they eliminate OLF? They made declaration in the parliament, in a televised speech, Daniel, where they said, we cannot contain the Oromo Liberation Army. The only way we can contain the Oromo Liberation Army is by wiping out the Oromo. Effectively, that's what they said. The spokesperson said, the reason why we couldn't contain the Oromo Liberation Army, the Oromo Liberation Movement, for Abiy Ahmed said, oil, we must eliminate oil. So Batte Urgessa, even though he doesn't have anything to do with the Oromo Liberation Army, he is a senior official of the Oromo Liberation Front, the very organization that has distanced itself from the Oromo Liberation Army and that decided to conduct their political matters in peaceful way. Okay? So Abiy Ahmed said, we must eliminate these people, the likes of Batte Urgessa, the likes of Daud Ibsam, okay? Even including those who are those political prostitutes. I'm sorry to use the word, but I take full responsibility for using this word. Those political prostitutes who, on one hand, pretend to be members of OLF and now working with Abiy Ahmed in the government. So Abiy Ahmed's threats includes them. Batte Urgessa was killed. He was assassinated. Perhaps, I mean, it's because he's an Oromo in the first place. He is an Oromo. He is part of the sea, the ocean that Ethiopia has vowed to dry up. Specifically talking about him, he's very, he is an epitome of humbleness, eloquence, political maturity, wisdom. So you can make many speculations because his party, the Oromo Liberation Front and like other Oromo parties that are conducting our non-armed struggle, Abiy Ahmed tried to summon them to play drama, like, oh, we are conducting national dialogue. The Oromo Liberation Front is the very organization that said, no, if we have to conduct national dialogue, it has to be inclusive. We don't participate in a fake propaganda. So Batte Urgessa is representing this organization. Always what we have learned about Abiy Ahmed and Ethiopia's government is they look for a moment to hit on dissent. Now they're trying to make it look like, but the bigger picture is this, okay? They already have declared what they intend to do, and they are doing it. When it comes to specifically to Batte, look, it was only less than a month ago, a few weeks ago, he was released. And he shouldn't have been arrested in the first place. What did he do wrong? He just happened to sit down with an international journalist. So they have been following him. And now they're trying to, to play their drama, their filthy drama, to say, to blame it on somebody else. Who else would be able to access him when he was under the custody of the Ethiopian security forces? So by so doing, they are trying to inflict fear on all Oromo political parties that are engaging in non-armed political movement. They are effectively saying, this is what we are going to do to you. We've done it to Batte Urgessa. We did it to Hachalu Hundessa. We did it to lawyers. We've done it to Oromo doctors. Now, unless you zip your mouth, this is what we're going to do. It has become a trend.
Thank you, Danilo. So, from justice point of view, I've seen the U.S. Foreign Relations Committee Chair, Senator Cardin, has called for international independent investigation into Batte Urgessa assassination. Do you think this is going to happen? Would the Ethiopian government accept a national independent investigation to the assassination of Batte Urgessa? Most likely, the Ethiopian government, as some would say, will investigate. The regional government and the federal government will investigate into his killing. But that, to me, is like a regime that has done the crime investigating its own crime. And we know that when Hachalu Hundessa was killed, they created some kind of drama and sounded like he was ambushed by those who were looking for money at some point, and then they tried to pin it on the Oromo Liberation Army at another point. And they even say those who were shooting at the demonstrators was Oromo Liberation Army, but the demonstrators, the people who were rallying on the street, were pointing their finger towards the government. It was the government forces who are shooting at us, were what the people were saying. So this time around, when we look at justice, can we hope justice will be delivered to Batte Urgessa and his, his kids, his wife, his families, and the Oromo people at large? And if not, what impact would this have on in terms of the future of the political environment in Ethiopia? How would this result in terms of the young people who are looking at what the political atmosphere in Ethiopia? What would this tell them? And that's one aspect of my question. And the other is in terms of the global community, democratic countries like the United States, the United Kingdom, European Union, in Africa Union. What should be their reaction to this? And I have a couple of more questions. I'll get back to it.
Can you imagine the kind of attention, the kind of media coverage this incidents should have received if it happened in Europe, and particularly if Ethiopia was the enemy, considered enemy of the West, like Russia? It's one, it's because the African Union, the Africa's institutions are so weak that they even don't care about the very reasons, about the purpose for which they were established. So that's one. And also with regard to the US statement, well, it's good. At least that captured their attention. Then again, what they are asking for is for Ethiopian government to investigate the assassination that was conducted by the Ethiopian government security forces. Has Ethiopia ever had any credible record of conducting investigation into the assassinations the Ethiopian security forces committed in history? I mean, the good example, the massacre of the Karenju Baghdad leaders, the institutional leaders, about 14 of them, they were massacred in broad daylight, cold-blooded, by the Ethiopian government security forces. While the Ethiopian government security, the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission demanded, investigation need to be conducted. On one hand, they said they conducted investigation into the massacre, and these people, these leaders, were killed by the Ethiopian government security forces. Okay, years later, like we mentioned earlier, the Reuters revealed the sophistication around the planning of the massacre, the hierarchy of the chain of command who gave order to conduct that massacre. The Ethiopian government security forces. Now, according to Agence France Presse, Batte Urgessa was arrested last night. He was arrested by the Ethiopian government security forces, and a few hours later, he was found dead. He was someone under legal protection if his arrest was legal. Did he commit suicide? Is that what they're going to tell us? Or did somebody break into their custody? No. So the investigation. They have told the world, if America's United States government was to investigate this assassination, they have to begin from the proclamation, from the declaration that Abiy Ahmed made in December 2020, when he said in televised speech, he said, we are going to eliminate oil legs. The global community turned blind eyes, deaf ear. And they, few weeks later, after Abiy Ahmed made that declaration in the parliament, Daniel, in the parliament, they said, the only way we can stay on power is by wiping out the Oromo. That's what they said. Did that shock the world? No. So it's as if the global community do not care about human rights, the rule of law, democracy in Africa. They don't care. If they did, the very declaration that Abiy Ahmed made to eliminate oil left, and the way to eliminate oil left is by wiping out the Oromo. By the way, he said we must eliminate oil left in English in a televised speech. That should have triggered some kind of concern among the global community. Effectively, by that declaration, he was saying we are going to repeat Rwanda, and particularly the speech Abiy Ahmed's representative made in the parliament in December 2020 was clearly telling the world, look, we are going to wipe out the Oromo. And they intensified the implementation. No sooner, it wasn't even a year, just a very few months later, after that declaration was made, they conducted the Karayu massacre, the Karayu Bagada massacre. How many villages are being burned down as we speak now in Oromia? How many likes of Ahmed El Windimbu? They are in every corner, in every village of Oromia. The Ethiopian government are implementing that strategy, policy of wiping out the Oromo, and the world, the global community, have turned blind eyes, deaf ear. I mean, they risk moral bankruptcy, but that wouldn't save the Oromo. So that's how I view the press release by the U.S. State Department. Look at the reports of the U.S. State Department annual every year. The U.S. State Department, they reveal reports of arbitrary killing, arbitrary mass arrest, arbitrary detention, eviction that Ethiopia has perpetrated against the Oromo. Every year, the U.S. State Department reports this. The
Thank
Human
you,
Rights Watch
Danabo.
and
Yeah, thank you, Danabo.
Amnesty International as well. This would warrant, this would warrant some kind of action from the global community. Have they? No. Just how I see it.
Thank you very much, Danabo. It looks like the West, especially when it comes to Ethiopia, and the Oromo Liberation Front, the Oromo Liberation Army, the U.S. views the politics of the Oromo Liberation Front and the Oromo Liberation Army would be one of those that can dismantle Ethiopia, and they seem to be the protectors of Ethiopia. They want to keep Ethiopia at all risk, at all costs. And when it comes to the Oromo Liberation Front, they don't want the Oromo Liberation Front to be strong, to be given a space, political space, and participate in the politics of Ethiopia. Um, but now it looks like they make distinction between the Oromo Liberation Front is registered by the Ethiopian Electoral Commission and conducted political operation in the capital and in Oromia. The reaction and calling for international investigation seems to, to some extent, they are concerned and they want to see justice given to Batte, his family, and the Oromo people. Um, I don't know how much they want, and they will, continue with praising the Ethiopian government and holding the Ethiopian government accountable. But I don't feel and perceive that they don't know what is going on the ground. I don't think they haven't seen the report of the Reuters report. That was very detailed and pointing to what is going on the ground so far. And I don't feel, just like you said, I don't feel any justice will be given to Batte and others, because we all know that, as you mentioned, it was later confirmed the perpetrators of the Bagadakari massacre were government security forces, and Corina Agenya was part of it, and nobody was held accountable for that. The government is ruling with dirty hand, with blood on its own hand, and if they have done yesterday, and it's most likely them who did this one too, and who is going to investigate who, and what would be the outcome. No, I don't think, even if a national investigation is conducted, it would be good for from one point of view, because the global community will know more about what the Ethiopian government's model operandi is, and it would most likely have an impact in terms of financial support and global the perception of Abiy Ahmed and his government at the global stage. Other than that, I don't think anybody would be held accountable in terms of, like, if you murder somebody in the West, the person would be sentenced either to life or lengthy imprisonment, or there would be a capital punishment. The person would be killed, right? That's the scenario. In this case, I don't think anybody would be held accountable to that extent. And also, international investigation, of course, has another benefit. If the government the government officials are confirmed to be behind this. They can also be, tried in global tribunal, like at the International Criminal Justice, International Criminal Court of which is part of the UN, and ICC is another avenue. I don't think Ethiopian government can investigate its own crime. Um, and also maybe the Ethiopian government will decline an international investigation and claim that it will create a team of investigators from its own, system from within. And also the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission, which was established by the Ethiopian government itself. I don't think they would also conduct any genuine, impartial investigation into this. And we'll see what is going to happen. And in terms of the political implication, now that we know and the world knows non-violent struggle in Ethiopia is not allowed, it costs us. Now, it's obvious that the other leaders of the Oromo Liberation Front are languishing in jail, and they are suffering from illnesses. They are tortured. Some of them have already been disabled. Some of them have sustained chronic conditions, hepatitis and cirrhosis and fibrosis of liver, which is permanent. And so we know that the Ethiopian government is not allowing any number struggle. And don't you think that the global community now understand better about why the Oromo Liberation Army is fighting, has picked up armies and fighting against the Ethiopian government, and in terms of the Oromo people's aspiration to be independent? And what would this suggest? And wouldn't it give more impetus to the armed struggle and the Oromo people's support for that, and also global understanding why the Oromo people are, conducting armed struggle at this point?
I think this clearly accentuates the hypocrisy of those global actors who always blame the Oromo Liberation Army for taking up gun for many reasons. On one hand, they say, no, we don't encourage that. We only encourage the peaceful, non-armed way of advancing the Oromo cause. On the other hand, when Ethiopia told the global community that it would not allow the peaceful struggle, that it will eliminate the oil, the global community haven't done anything. Now the assassinations after assassinations, the massacre that have been conducted, they haven't done anything. Second, the reason why I said it accentuates the hypocrisy is because the global community or the global actors, they don't seem to be they don't seem to be loyal to their own values. I mean, the values of human rights, the values of democracy, the values of freedom of expression, They're very selective on that. It's only recently when Sergei Levany, the Russian politician, he died in prison. And killed, probably. All the Western leaders, they immediately said Putin killed Mr. Navalny. Putin should pay for it. Look, Navalny died, he was killed in prison. Batte Urgessa was killed while under custody. He was arrested by the government forces. So if the Western powers, I'm only saying the Western powers because I'm not going to blame the Arabs, because they're not saying we value human rights, democracy, or the rule of law. They're not even signatory to many of these global international human rights tools and instruments and resolutions. What Ethiopia is doing to the Oromo, the killings, the arbitrary killings that we hear every day, the massacre, these are not just crimes Ethiopia perpetrated against the Oromo. It should be treated as a crime, as crimes that Ethiopia has perpetrated against the global community, against each and every nation that is signatory to those international human rights tools and instruments. Everything that Ethiopia has been doing to the Oromo is in violation of Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It's in violations of crimes. It is crimes against humanity. It's genocide. So every country that is signatory to the treaties against genocide, that is signatory to the treaties of human rights, including the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, should be concerned. Because if Ethiopia continues to do this, what is the importance of having these global arrangements then? If it is not protecting, if it is not being implemented, what is the point in having them? That is why the hypocrisy, the silence of the global community not only vindicates the Oromo Liberation Army, but also tells loud and clear that the Oromo have no one to defend them but the Oromo themselves. That is why the Oromo have to defend themselves, because the global community have failed the Oromo. The global arrangements, the global legal systems have failed the Oromo. So now, particularly what happened to Batte is indicative of an ongoing risk to other members of the Oromo Liberation Front who say they conduct their cause peacefully. Is also indicative of the risk to the likes of Oromo Federalist Congress and all other Oromo political parties that say we oppose armed struggle and we conduct our cause, we advance our cause in peaceful way. It's telling them there is no peaceful way. That's why the Oromo have, realized that unless you have the power to defend yourself, nobody defends you. So, I mean, the help for the Oromo should only be expected to come from the Oromo themselves.
Thank you,
So
Daniel.
that's
So, um, in terms of the people's reaction back in Finfinne, in Oromia, and I heard that some university students, especially the Addis Ababa Finfinne University students, have started demonstration. The government tried to prevent that. And what does that suggest? That the government doesn't want the public to express their opinion, even though that's their constitutional right. What does that indicate, and how would that relate to this assassination? Why does the government prevent people from expressing their reaction to the assassination of Batte Urgessa?
well, Ethiopia is known for mowing down peaceful protesters time and again. This is the reality we grew up witnessing. Um, they they don't allow people to express themselves, and they the university students could take it to the streets. Then the regime of Abiy Ahmed, they are very devious. They are known for making all kinds of excuses. Probably they say to them, no, these are not allowed demonstrations, or it's anti-peace demonstration. In the first place, according to the constitution, you don't need even to ask for permission to hold demonstration. You just have to notify them for protection. But what Ethiopia have done is they spray live ammunitions on peaceful demonstrators. So I don't think I've heard there are quite a few demonstrations taking place, but I don't think the government of Abiy Ahmed is programmed in such a way that they could listen to the grievances of the people. They don't care about the grievances of the people, because again, I'm repeating myself again, they have clearly stated their intention, their policy, the policy towards the Oromo Liberation Front. I'm not saying the Oromo Liberation Army. I'm talking about the Oromo Liberation Front, whom Abiy Ahmed said we must eliminate them. And the way to eliminate them, according to the parliament of Abiy Ahmed, was by wiping out the Oromo. So effectively, what they are doing is wiping out the Oromo. I can't give any other explanation for this. Have the world done anything? No. So that's why I say the Oromo have got only one option, because they are faced with existential threats. It's either to be eliminated or to defend themselves.
Thank you very much, Danabo Wario, from Wales, United Kingdom, and this is Finfinne News Network, and we have been discussing about the assassination of Batte Urgessa. Batte Urgessa is a high political figure, and um, a senior member of the Oromo Liberation Front, and he had been several times detained by the Ethiopian government. He was tortured while he was in jail. He was recently arrested and detained for speaking to a press journalist, and he was released after his family paid 100,000 Ethiopian birr as a bond, and he was living in a life of fear. And he was assassinated when he visited his his birthplace, Emaki, a town southeast of the capital. And he was taken out of a hotel room by groups of people, not specifically identified at this point, but they are assumed to be members of the Ethiopian security forces. He was shot by about six bullets, about six shells of bullets were collected from the site of where he dumped him, or about 2 kilometers away from the hotel. And his body was kept by Japan security forces, and the family. There was a struggle for the parents, for the family members, in collecting his body. And there was an indication that there was an intention to make business eat the deceased political figures body, and he was dumped at a dump site where wild beasts are feed. And so there was intention to hide his assassination. And in Ethiopia there are now security cameras in hotels, and that can prevent some kind of evidences. But still, there were a number of questions that I was thinking about in terms of how about the hotel administration? Can they have some information about the identity of those who forcibly took Batte Urgessa? Why did Batte Urgessa open his door, his hotel door, when the killers and wanted him? And did they break into his room? So there are a number of questions that we don't have answers to at this point. And this is the tip of an iceberg in political assassinations daily happen in Ethiopia under and conducted by Ethiopian security forces. Um, the reason that there is no much attention to those killings is that the people are less known. They are taken from their homes in rural places. They are not high profile political figures as Batte is, but there are several targeted assassinations being conducted by the Ethiopian government, federal government security forces, and regional government security forces. The intention, as the Nabo explained, is to implement their policy of eliminating trade, eliminating the risks among the Oromo community. And those political assassinations are mostly happening in the Oromia region. Even if there is a war going on in the Mara region, we don't hear targeted assassination that much. And we didn't hear much in the Tigray region, except Asiyum Masfin, um, who was the former foreign minister of Ethiopia. In other regions, in Somalia region and southern region, we don't have that much similar, frequent, and ongoing political assassinations. And so there is a specific and intentional focus on Oromia. It feels like the Japan government believes the threat to its regime comes from Oromia, and it's my opinion that this will drive hundreds of thousands of Oromo youths into the jungle to join the Oromo Liberation Army and to intensify the struggle to liberate their country and their own people. I don't think the intention of the government, the plan of the government will succeed in staying in power indefinitely and eliminating political opponents. The political figures in nonviolent struggle will result in the government consolidating its power. I believe this will backfire and drive thousands of the Oromo youth, capable Oromo youth, into the jungle, and that will eventually result in the demise of this regime. And also, I believe this will this will increase the probability of Ethiopia being disintegrated, because there is a discriminate, a frequent and ongoing, unabating political assassination that's taking place in Oromia, and there's no focus, there's no enough, um, there is no enough outcry from others. When this happens to an Oromo, it's a matter of an Oromo. So this will further consolidate and strengthen the feeling that the Oromos are not citizens of this empire, and they need to have their own solution for this ongoing, um, assassination that has historically continued under different leadership. It has happened under Menelik, it has happened under Haile Selassie, it has happened under Derg regime. We remember figures such as Tadesse Burru. We remember figures such as Gudina Tumsa. We remember a number of individuals who were cut short during the TPLF leadership, such as Ebisa Dunya, and people like Osmayo Musa were tortured while in prison, and he died shortly after he was released from prison under the EPRDF. And this has continued. And we have seen under Abiy Ahmed's leadership in the last 6 years, major political icons of the Oromo people, and such as Batte Urgessa and now Batte Urgessa have been eliminated, and this has continued. And this is a pattern that has no stop and is continuing. And it tells us that the current government is no different from its predecessors, and the Oromo people need to, at some point, get out of this situation and break the cycle. Thank you so much, the Nabo Wario, and
Thank you for having me.
Mhm. So that's Symphony News Network. Until next time, thank you very much for watching, and please share and subscribe to our channel. At this point, YouTube has restricted Symphony News Network FNN's channel, and so we are transmitting our programs through other social media, and also would like to put on our website fnnmedia.org. Please share our content and let other people get the transmission. Thanks so much.